for a lot of us, we should focus on fewer things, but go deeper into those things. I'm not going to do as many things. I'm going to do fewer things, but I'm going to go deeper and I'm going to become more proficient in the fewer things that I do. It might be really hard for you when you're so focused on a million things because you are probably equating to some degree personal worth with maximum productivity. And you're equating maximum productivity with doing a bunch of shit running around all the time. Kipp, what's up, man? Great to see you. It's not like we got enough of each other last week, but here we are again. And both of us seem like we're mad scrambling today. So yeah, it's been a little crazy since I got home, but we're making it work today.
Yeah, there was some simplicity to our schedule last week, which was pretty much wake up, same time every day, throw on the same clothes from the hunt before, rinse and repeat 5 days in a row. It was very simplistic. But it was funny. I was telling someone today, I was like, I know it was holiday for me, like vacation, but it felt like a little bit of a grind. It's good to be back to work a little bit.
Look, I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you, actually. I think I can speak for you on this one. You tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't like the vacation, the traditional vacation thing. For me, that's stupid. You're just supposed to sit there and just do nothing? Like, I'm running when I'm on vacation. But this, to me, out hunting, and we were hunting in Hawaii, out there hunting, running around, packing deer, breaking deer down, like hiking, to me, that's vacation. It's not just an absence of anything significant and meaningful for me. It's just a different pace than ordinary everyday life. So I loved it. I had such a that's vacation to me.
Yeah, it was. Are you tired from last week?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. Yeah, like I got home at 1 o'clock a couple of nights ago, and yeah, last night I couldn't sleep. I told you I got a new puppy. I was scheduled to pick up a new puppy when I got home. So the puppy's right here laying on the floor, not in the 90% of the space that it should lay, but in the 10% pulling cords out of the wall. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? But I don't know why I do the things I do to myself sometimes, but here we are in this situation. Yeah. So
getting a puppy. Yeah. I'm like, what were you thinking, actually?
I wasn't. And doing this podcast, I'm like, we should have recorded beforehand or, something so that we can play catch up when we get back. But, we all got work to do. So let's get after it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We're going to field questions from a number of sources. So let's get to them. So T-Yote,
we better say first, though, Kipp, we don't have a headline today. We normally do. But again, this is in our mad scramble. We didn't even know we were going to record this morning. So in our mad scramble, that got left out. So sorry, guys. We'll make it up to you next week.
Yeah, we'll get some good headlines next week.
Yeah.
All right. T-Yote the Coyote. Is there a version of Order of Man, but for women? And I've heard you, of course, answer this question before, but it's a good reminder for those that have not heard.
Yeah, there is. It's called Revitalized Womanhood. It's run by a woman named Gina Trimmer, who happens to be the wife of Rick Trimmer, who we were hunting with last week. So we have a really good relationship, me and their family. They've got wonderful kids. We've been to Costa Rica together. We've broken bread together. We've spent a lot of time together. Rick and I are business partners. Obviously, we hunt together. So if a woman's looking for something similar to what we're doing here, but specifically in the vein of womanhood, then check out Revitalized Womanhood with Gina Trimmer. And then she's got her Revitalized Sisterhood, which is the woman's parallel to the Iron Council, our exclusive brotherhood. And by the way, that opens up on this Friday the 14th, so be aware of that.
Excellent. All right, vibing with Sean, what the top 5 off-grid self-reliance skills you learned while living in Maine that a 30-year-old man should probably start learning right now?
One thing that I don't know that I learned a lot of off-grid stuff in Maine. I lived in a house in Maine. There are people that live in Maine. There's only like a million, 1.2 million people, but there are people in Maine. believe it or not. So yeah, I don't know if it's Maine that, made me this survival expert necessarily. But in the spirit of the question, the one thing that I think about quite often is, because you're going to hear all the same answers, shelter, water, food, fire, these sorts of things, all good and important things. Bug out bag, like what you should have, that sort of thing. I think more than anything, I'm trying to be precise with my language here, more than anything, the single most important skill that you can have is critical thinking and problem solving. Because I think in a situation like that, you're going to have to be completely creative based on the circumstances that you will find yourself in. So, a very small example of that. We had a little incident where a pipe may or may not have been shot with an arrow this past weekend. And I saw the patch job that may or may not have taken place. And it was pretty creative. It's not like we had...
I was shocked,
we didn't have the actual sleeve and the clamps and the right tools and the hose that was the right diameter. So you make do with what you have, and that's what these guys did. And it wasn't 100% perfect, but it was 90, and that got us where we needed to be until we were able to fix the pipe properly. So creative problem solving, I think, is the number one skill that you could have. Being able to look at your surroundings, look at your environment, see things that other people may not, look for resources, whether it's string or trash or garbage or debris. I see a lot of these television shows like Alone, where people will find trash that floats up to shore. And one of the rules is if they find it out in the woods, they can use it for their survival. And these people are finding plastic and barrels and old parts of boats and things like this that they're actually using. And that is a huge, huge skill that I think is often overlooked in those survival scenarios. So yeah, I could get into learn how to start a fire with a bow drill and a flint, multiple ways to start a fire. That's important. Learn how to source water. I think land nav is something that's crucial that a lot of people don't have. We used that last week when we were out hiking in Hawaii. There was places that we went that we've never been before. And what was interesting is you could find your way back. Even if you've walked a mile, you could find your way back, even if there wasn't a road, just because of our human intuition. Imagine honing that and refining that to the nth degree. And that's what you can do if you're actually focused on it. So there are a lot of skills and everybody knows what they are. But for me, I'm just going to answer that by saying, learn to develop critical thinking skills and being creative. And I think that will make up for a lot of lack in a situation like that.
Yeah. I like your approach to this and not doing the typicals. I can't help but run with that idea and think, well, geez, okay, how often do we not talk about off-grid or self-reliance skills and say, how's your fitness? How's your emotional intelligence? Are you reliant on any type of meds that you could potentially get off of? Like, if you don't have emotional resilience, you're not healthy. It doesn't matter what skills you have around making fires and other things. You're going to have problems. And so I love that idea of kind of getting our crap together as individuals as part of kind of the most important off-grid self-reliant capability period.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote those things down. You have these three, I think primarily three realms of health, I would say, and that's your physical health, your mental health, and your emotional health. You might throw spiritual health in there too. I think that would also be important. But yeah, it's crucial that we develop all of these. Most men know, obviously, to develop the physical health, but how do you develop the emotional? How do you develop the mental? Because when you're in a challenging situation like that, it's your mind that's going to keep you engaged and alive. You're going to be very emotional. And when we're emotional and we're making decisions emotionally, we make bad decisions because we aren't taking into consideration other factors, rational and critical thinking skills. So these are all elements, factors of health that we should focus on. And we can talk a lot about that. And we have, and we will continue to do that.
Yeah. Have you ever, let me ask you if you ever do this, because I do this personally, is sometimes if I get emotionally kind of riled up or I'm upset at something, one of the tactics I use to kind of level set is, Kipp, if you can't deal with this circumstance, what makes you think that you can deal with even more important things? And it kind of puts me in the mindset of like, yeah, this isn't that big of a deal. And if this is kind of bothering me a lot emotionally, that's a problem, because in the grand scheme of things, this isn't that critical. This isn't that big of a thing, and I need to level up in this circumstance. Do you ever do anything like that?
Yeah, I think there's perspective, right? And I often look at what other men are capable of. There's often the thing that we hear is comparison trap. The comparison trap that leads you to inaction is unhealthy, but the comparison that leads you to action and inspiration is actually very healthy. So if I look at what you're doing from, let's say, a business perspective, Kipp, and I'm demoralized and I feel victimized and it leads me to sitting around feeling like anything I do is futile, that's a problem. That's the comparison trap that most people are aware of. But alternatively, if I look at what you're doing and I think, man, Kipp's killing it. Like, look at this business he started. Look at these contacts he's making. Look at this income he's been able to create for him and his family. And I'm inspired by that. Hey, if Kipp can do that, man, surely I can. What can I learn from him? What can I learn from other people? That's also a comparison, but that's a healthy way of looking at it. So everything is just the perspective and the lens in which you look through your experiences of life. So what might cripple one person absolutely won't phase another. You did say something that I don't actually like the phrasing of, and I don't think you mean this, and you and I have had conversations on and offline about this. You said, if I can't deal with this. I don't like that phrasing, and I'll tell you why. And I don't actually think you mean this, but I don't like the phrasing because I think most people, when they say that, they mean stuff it. Stuff it. Right? Like, if I can't deal with this client being upset with me, then I can't deal with other hard things. What that means to me when I hear that is just stuff that shit down.
Not address it, just like
not
avoid
address
it or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think you mean that because I know you.
Yeah.
But I think that's what most people believe, especially in the realm of manliness and masculinity. Oh, just deal with it. It means just shut up and do it.
Yeah. Avoid it. Avoid confronting your emotions or your feelings or whatever. Just, pretend they're not there.
Life's tough. Deal with it. What does that mean? That means get over it.
Yeah.
It's actually not healthy and not constructive.
Yeah. It's process it, learn from it, grow from it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I think that's what you meant when you say those words, but I think semantics are important and can be important unless you're just debating stupid things. But I think that's really important that we develop our emotional intelligence, not by quote unquote, just deal with it, but by actually dealing with it, actually addressing it. So if you're upset or you're mad about something, to me, dealing with it would be more appropriately, why am I upset? Why do I feel this way? Why do I believe the things I believe about this person or this experience right now? What can I learn from it? How do I move forward? So if somebody's looking at some situation, maybe they got into a little fender bender and they're losing their damn mind, and I've seen people do this, they're losing their mind over it, but they have this moment of clarity like, hey, if I can't deal with a little fender bender, how am I going to deal with my wife being diagnosed with cancer or something catastrophic like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In those moments, think to yourself, what can I do to build up some emotional resiliency and fortitude so that when a situation like this happens, it's not that big a deal? One thing I think of in that scenario, and this is how they're all intertwined, is if you're upset about a little fender bender, there might be two things happening. There's probably an infinite number of things that are happening, but two things. Number one, you're stressed for time. You're like, I don't have time for this bullshit right now. And then you freak out. Number two, you're stressed for money. Oh my gosh, I got a $1,000 deductible. I got to pay this $1,000 because this jackoff hit me, and now I got to deal with this, and I don't have any money, and I'm supposed to, pay for my kid's football thing. Okay, well, there's other scenarios that we need to deal with. You need to deal with time management. You need to deal with financial management. And when you deal with all of these things appropriately, and I'm using your language, the deal with, right? You deal with these things appropriately, then everything else becomes less relevant. Yeah. You know, if you're in a good financial spot and you have to pay a $500 deductible, it's not going to be exciting to you, but it's manageable. If you're not stressed for time because you've managed your time and your schedule correctly and you have buffer built into your day and somebody happens to bump into you or back into you in the parking lot, yeah, it's not ideal, but it's okay. Like, you have time, you'll be able to manage it appropriately. So all of these things that we talk about, they're just so interconnected. And if you improve in one aspect of your life, all the other aspects will get better. That's why I tell guys, just go to the gym. If you feel like shit, go to the gym. Well, but I feel like shit. I know you do. I know emotionally you're going through a hard time, but just go to the gym. You're going to, trust me, you will feel better. You're going to burn up energy. You're going to release certain chemicals in your body that are going to help you quite literally, physiologically feel better. Over time, you're going to look better, which is going to drive up energy production. You're going to be more productive, which is going to help you feel better about yourself. You're going to make more money. You're going to get more attention from the opposite sex. Everything's going to be better if you go work out.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that they're all intertwined the way they are.
Yeah, it's so nice. So, Drugstore Cowboy 70, his question, why did you leave Maine?
I left Maine because I went through a divorce. My ex-wife asked for a divorce in August. Was it August?
It's almost been, it's going to be a year already.
Well, no.
Since
this
started.
was 2 years ago. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So she asked for a divorce, and I spent 6 months trying to salvage the marriage, repair the marriage, work on it. But by then it was too little too late for her. So we had made the decision to move back to Utah. Fortunately, we still are amicable and we have a good working relationship for our kids. That would be hard if we didn't. And I know a lot of guys are in that situation. I'm not, fortunately. So we're from Southern Utah. We thought, based on this set of life events, that it would be better for the kids to be here where they have a lot of friends and support, and her family is all here. So she would have support and friends. So yeah, we decided to move back early last year. So about a year and a half ago, we moved back to Utah. And I didn't really want to move back initially, but of course, like, my kids are going to be here. I'm not going to be in Maine. So I'm actually really glad I'm here. You know, establish old friendships. I love Southern Utah. It's an amazing, amazing place to live. There's good people, outdoors. I've met the woman I'm dating now. We've been dating for about 6 months, and if I didn't come back, I wouldn't have met her. I mean, there's so many amazing things about being back in Southern Utah, and I would be happy too if I was in Maine. So it's often interesting to me when you hear people who think that if I go here, I'll be better. If I go there, I'll be better. No, you'll be better wherever you decide to be better. And I was a little bitter when we came back because I didn't want to, but I fully embraced it. I jumped in, called up old friends, found some new hobbies, engaged in the local opportunities, and I feel really good about being back.
It's interesting how people would look at your circumstance and go, well, what's the right place? Is Utah the right place, or is Maine the right place? Like, it's one or the other. And we do that all the time in decisions. Yeah. And we even had this conversation around, like, even when people are dating and looking for spouses, how often we have this mindset of, like, it's black and white. Well, it's the person or it's the location. And it's like, actually, it could be both, and you could thrive in both locations really well. And it's more about how you show up in those circumstances, in those situations, than it is really the location itself.
Yeah, one thing that I always kind of chuckled at, and I used to be LDS Mormon. You still are, Kipp. I used to be. I'm no longer. But one thing that I always laughed at was when people, so for those who don't quite understand the culture, and there's a lot to it, but one aspect is every, I don't even remember. Is it the first Sunday or the fifth? No, it's the fifth Sunday of every month is testimony meeting, right? Is that right?
You've already forgotten.
Dude,
It's
I've already
the first
forgotten.
Sunday of every month.
First Sunday.
First Sunday.
Yeah, first Sunday of every month, where people would get up and they would just share their testimony, their current testimony. And every once in a while, people would get up and they're like, oh, I really prayed to God about where I should live. And like, is this right or is that right? And we really felt inspired to move here. I'm like, you know what? God doesn't care where you live. I 100%, and I remember thinking that at the time, God does not care where you live. He is going to give you opportunities. He is going to put people in front of you. He is going to turn even a bad decision into a good one if you listen. Like, he doesn't care. He cares. Don't get me wrong. He cares, but it's irrelevant in the scheme of eternity where you live. Just make the best of where you are and look for opportunities that present themselves. Ask for his direction and guidance, and you will find whatever it is you're looking for wherever you happen to go.
Yeah. Well, and this is that paradox of choice. And we get wrapped up into having so many choices of what is the right choice. And your relationship with the choosing process dictates the success of the choice more than the choice itself. And it's
I agree.
Fascinating that we get wrapped up and we almost hinder and hurt ourselves through that mindset of what is the right thing versus how do I just making the best of the thing itself.
Yeah. You know what? I have a really interesting experience in this when we moved to Maine, in fact. So we moved to Maine. We moved our family from southern Utah to Maine, so quite literally across the country. And we're excited, and we get there, and everybody that we met is cordial and friendly and curious about who the new people are. And they either, when you're in Maine, when you're a Mainer is somebody who's born and raised in Maine, and you could live there for 40 years. But if you weren't born in Maine, you're not a Mainer. You never will be. So you have to be born in Maine. And so you're a Mainer. So the Mainers would say people that from outside the state, they would call them either Flatlanders or from away. Oh, you're from away. Like it's some other fairy tale land in Cinderella or something. Yeah. You're from away. Like nothing else is relevant. You're from away. You're from somewhere else. Or a Flatlander. Which is ironic because we have more hills and mountains than we do.
I was going to say, Maine's not like mountainous, so
right.
It's funny.
But you're a Flatlander. So we moved to Maine, and we have a really good experience, but we immerse ourselves in the culture. Like we get to know our neighbors. My ex-wife brought things by to neighbors and introduced ourselves, and we tried to get involved in community events, and I was involved really heavily with Origin and training with those guys and meeting people. We tried to get really involved, and I had a neighbor who happened to move from away to Maine who told me, he said, oh, man, you guys are going to have a hard time here. And I said, really? What makes you say that? What do you mean? He's like, oh, Mainers, like people from here, they don't like people from away. They don't like anybody else coming in here, and they'll treat you different. And I believe that for him. I believe that they will treat him differently because he believes that. And so he's projecting onto other people, and they're treating him differently. And even if they're not, he's perceiving it as being treated that way. Yeah. I didn't have that bias. It hadn't been my experience. In fact, I came in with an open mind and an open heart to the way people would receive us, and it was beautiful. I never once felt like these people didn't want us here. They were curious. They were engaged. I loved it. So how can two people who lived so close to each other and moved into this place have two completely different experiences? Perception. That's it. He perceived that people would have a difficult time with him, and they did. I perceived that they wouldn't, and they didn't. That's it. That's the only difference.
And they become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yes.
So the individual that has the perspective that they're not welcome, and there's a I don't know, neighborhood picnic. Do they go to the picnic? No, they don't. And people see that they don't. And then people go, oh, they're not interested in getting or having a relationship with us. So then they distance themselves because you distanced yourself. And then what do you know? They're not welcoming.
Right.
And it's all rooted in how you showed up.
Yeah. You know, there is one other lesson here that I want to share with people. If you do move somewhere, I want you to hear me very clearly. It is not other people's responsibility to welcome you there. Now, should they? Yes. They should be neighborly. They should be brotherly. They should outreach. They should connect. They should attempt to get you involved in the community. Absolutely, they should. It is not their responsibility to do it. You know whose responsibility is? Yours. You're in their neighborhood. You're the one who interjected in their culture. So if you want to get involved in the community and want people to like you and want to build connections and resources and a community around you, you have to do it, which is what we did. Visited neighbors, got involved in community projects. When there was picnics and other parades, we went to them. We introduced ourselves to people. It was our responsibility, and we were welcomed with open arms. And that's actually, I like it that way, because if I'm sitting around waiting for other people to do what I think they ought to do to help me feel welcome or comfortable, I'm going to be waiting a very, very long time. As a man, I would rather have that completely within my control, and it is. Now, I'm not going to like everybody just because I go out and introduce them, and they're not going to like me just because I went out and introduced myself. But you give yourself a better shot if you realize you're the foreigner here. Yeah. You're the one who decided to interject yourself in the community. So do it right, do it appropriately, and go out and introduce and be involved and get involved in these people's lives in a healthy, positive way. You'll have a much better experience than if you sit around thinking, why are these people so mean? Why don't they like us? Why doesn't anybody come over and welcomed us here? They have their shit. That's your job.
Yeah. Well, there's so much strategy there. I mean, the wife and I, we have totally done this where we might be worried about a particular person that we live by or a neighbor or whatever in times that we've kind of moved around. And those individuals, we go out of our way to go get to know.
Right.
We'll even ask them, hey, can you keep an eye on our property, or can you help us with this? Guys, if you're even nervous about a neighbor, you're like, oh, they're sketchy, that's the neighbor you need to go talk to and form somewhat of a relationship with. Trust me, that will benefit you more than anything else. Probably, statistically, I don't know, but it probably reduces the chances of them ever robbing you. It reduces the chances of other issues. Like it just sets you up to be more successful in that area. The better connected you are, whether you like them, on a personal level or not.
So you're actually speaking on something that is very well known and documented. Have you ever heard of the Benjamin Franklin effect? Oh, listen to this. So I've heard of it, but I wanted to pull it up just to be able to articulate it clearly. So I'm just going to read this. This is actually comes from Wikipedia. But it says here, the Ben Franklin effect is a psychological phenomenon in which people like someone more after doing a favor for them. This is an explanation. An explanation for this is cognitive dissonance. People reason that they help others because they like them, even if they do not, because their minds struggle to maintain logical consistency between their actions and perceptions. The Benjamin Franklin effect, in other words, is the result of one's concept of self coming under attack. Every person develops a persona, and that persona persists because inconsistencies in one's personal narrative get rewritten, redacted, and misinterpreted. That's awesome. So let me explain that in my own words. If, Kipp, you and I don't like each other, and I go ask, and this is what Ben Franklin would do, I go ask you, hey, Kipp, do you mind? I know you're reading a book the other day that seemed pretty interesting. Would it be okay if I borrowed that book from you? And you would say, Yeah, sure. And then I borrowed the book and I read it and I came back and I gave it to you and I took notes. I'm like, man, that was really good. I enjoyed this and this and this and this. Thank you. And I gave it back. Automatically, your like for me improves because you cannot maintain the inconsistency between not liking me and doing a favor for me.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you're talking about. Those people that you're like, I don't know. Most people say, I don't want to inconvenience them. I don't want to bother. No, actually the opposite. Go ask them for something.
Yeah.
It will help you and them develop a different relationship because of those inconsistencies that we have a hard time wrestling with in our minds, cognitive dissonance.
Which I love this because, like, not to take it from a religious perspective, right? But to be Christ-like and to love your neighbor and serve your neighbor, what does that do? Like, what is it doing psychologically? You're judgmental towards homeless people. Go serve in a soup kitchen. How do you feel afterwards? You don't have a problem with them as much. Yeah. You get connected. You see their world. You care a little bit more, right? It's good stuff, right? Especially when we think about being parents and having our kids help the elderly and serve others. What is it really doing to them psychologically? That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, man.
Cool.
What's next?
All right, Jim Sorensen. What are strategies you guys use for maintaining focus throughout the day? I find myself getting easily distracted and really have to put in a conscious effort to bring my energy and focus back to where I need it. Let me know if Kipp needs help pronouncing my last name.
Is it E-N or O-N? S-E-N or O-N? E-N.
If it was O-N, I'd pronounce it wrong.
Yeah. You'd make fun of it probably. Because what Soren said, S-E-N is what? What's the cultural history behind that? Is
Danish.
Danish. I was going to say Norwegian. I was way off, but Danish.
Yeah.
And then what's S-O-N? Do you know?
It's from Sweden. Is O-N.
Sweden. Okay. Got it. Yeah, I knew there was a distinction. So yeah, you would have made fun of them. Okay, so eliminating distraction and keeping focused on projects. Number one, I think for a lot of us, we should focus on fewer things but go deeper into those things. And that is the mindset for you specifically that I would work to adopt. Is I'm not going to do as many things, I'm going to do fewer things, but I'm going to go deeper and I'm going to become more proficient in the fewer things that I do. It might be really hard for you when you're so focused on a million things because you are probably equating to some degree personal worth with maximum productivity. And you're equating maximum productivity with doing a bunch of shit running around all the time.
Being effective, yeah.
No, not even effective.
Yeah, well, you
Just
think
doing
you are
shit.
because it feels that way, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I often say is never mistake action for prudence. And I picked that up when I was doing financial planning. People would say, hey, can you trade this stock and this stock and this and this and buy this and sell this and do? No, stop, shut up. You think that just because we're buying and selling, you're going to be able to beat the market. You're not. You're actually going to lose. The most prudent thing you can do with your portfolio is to leave it alone. We did the right thing initially. We're going to rebalance quarterly. We're indexing. Now just go on about your life. Don't even look at it. If you have questions, call me, pull it up, whatever. We're not buying and we're not doing that. Because it was my job to manage their emotions. That was my job as a financial advisor. Not manage the money. We already know how to manage money. It's to manage their emotions. So never mistake action for prudence. Most people think, go ask 100 people today. Go ask 10 people. Do this. Actually, like, what's this guy's name?
Jim.
Jim. Go ask 20 people today. Hey, man, how you doing? Or, hey, Sue, how you doing? Just go ask them. I'd be willing to bet that the overwhelming majority of them say, oh, it's really good, I'm busy. Oh, I'm just busy, I'm busy. But they wear it like a badge of honor. And you see people running around like little ants. I used to have this ant farm when I was a kid, and I'd watch these ants, and I'd say, these ants are so stupid. Look at these ants. They're just like running around, moving that piece of sand from that thing over to that. Like, what an idiot. And I'd sit there like God watching these ants do what I thought was pretty dumb menial work. Where are the ants? I went on a hike several weeks ago, and I climbed up to the H Hill, which is here in southern Utah, and I overlooked and I looked at all the streets, and I watched all these cars scurrying to and from offices and buildings and gas stations and grocery stores and back to their house, and I'm like, these are the ants. Where are the ants? I'm the ant now, the one that I used to make fun of, because we're running around scurrying to do nothing. And I think that might be what you're running across without knowing much about your situation. Now, from a more practical standpoint, what I would suggest, that was a mindset strategy. From a more practical standpoint, I would suggest that you just inventory where you're losing time throughout the day. So grab a journal. I've got a journal over here. I was writing in it earlier today. It's over here on my nightstand. And I write in that journal when I have thoughts. But one of the things that I would do if I was in your shoes is I would document all the times where I lose focus. So, for example, I'm working from home. I got this new little puppy. I lost focus a minute ago. You may have heard the puppy barked because he heard something outside. And so you were talking. Did you see me, Kipp?
No, I didn't pay.
Okay,
the
dog barked. You were talking, and I snapped at it, and I told it to be quiet, and I told it to go lay down, and surprisingly, it did. He's a good little guy so far. But that was a loss of focus. Okay, so write all of it down. The dog barked. Somebody rang the doorbell. Somebody came into my office. I was doing emails, and then I got a phone call. And I'm not even saying identify whether they're good or bad. I'm just saying identify where you get distracted. That's it. Then you can start looking at that list. If you do that for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, you can start looking at that list and think, man, this week alone, I lost 5.5 hours from people coming into my office asking unnecessary questions. That should be a light bulb moment for you. What do I need to do about that? Close the fucking door.
Yeah.
Put a sign on the door that says, do not disturb. Or, hey, I'm busy right now. At noon, I'll be available. Come back by at noon. What's to keep you from doing that? Like, set boundaries so that you can actually accomplish and do obviously within the realm of where you're working and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. But yeah, you got to set boundaries, because if you're losing 5.5 hours by people stopping in and like, hey, Jim, what about this thing? Did you? No, doors closed. Don't ask me about that. I also like time blocking. I learned this from Tim Ferriss years and years ago. He said that when you're doing, I can't remember the exact terminology he used, but when you're switching from tasks, it's not just the switching of tasks that takes time and energy, it's the revving up and revving down. So if I'm doing emails for a half an hour and then I get distracted because somebody comes into my office, and then when they leave, let's say it takes 30 minutes, and then I come back and do another half an hour of emails, that's an hour and a half worth of work, right? But if I take the same hour, the same hour and a half with a half an hour break because somebody came into my office, and then I just take an hour of doing emails straight without any interruptions, I'll get more work done in that hour without interruptions than the 30 minutes and then the 30 minutes later after the person leaves, because of the rev up and rev down process. A lot of people might refer to it as flow. When you get into a state, you're like, you get faster, you get more efficient. You're like, delete this email, send that, delay that one, respond this way, auto response on this one. You're way more effective if you do it over that time frame than if you break it up. So time stacking, time blocking is crucial, where you can just get a lot of stuff done in a short amount of time without any distractions. But the point that I was making is ultimately you have to figure out where the distractions are and either get rid of them altogether. Like, don't even allow them to come into your life. For example, if the phone's constantly ringing, but you're trying to send emails, move the phone to a different room or just turn it off. Yeah. You'll be okay, I promise. If you just turn your phone off for an hour, you're going to be okay. Or delegate. Maybe people are coming in asking you questions they don't need to be asking questions about. One example of that is in the Iron Council. I used to manage all the membership stuff where people would say, hey, I need to change my credit card or close my account or start a new account or change the address on file or update the expiration date or this or that. And I used to do all of that. I don't do all that anymore. Drew takes care of that. That's his role. That's his responsibility. So I set up an email for him. And I said, good, all those questions go there. I had one this morning. A guy asked for a refund because he wasn't using it. And I'm really good about making sure I don't jerk around with people's money. So I'm like, yeah, we can, if you're not using it, like you meant to cancel, you didn't, no problem. We'll issue a refund. I didn't issue the refund. Drew did. Sent a quick email. Hey, Drew, take care of this guy. He did. No problem. So you can delegate, or you can actually just tell them to come back later or do that task later. If you turn the phone off because you're doing emails, then you can pick your phone back up in an hour and answer all the texts that you need to answer that you happen to miss.
Yeah. Two good resources to look at regarding this is Deep Work by Cal Newport.
Yeah.
The other book I'd recommend is The Rise of Superman, and then another book called Stilling Fire. These are great books.
Who's The Rise of Superman? Is that by Stephen Kotler? What the fire one? Raising Fire. That one's by Kotler too, isn't it?
Yeah, both of those are by Kotler.
Talking about
great
flow.
Books. Yeah, on flow and deep work.
Yeah, both have been on the podcast. Cal Newport's been on multiple times. Stephen Kotler's been on the podcast to talk about, I believe we talked about Stealing Fire.
Yeah. And you can find and search those previous episodes up as well, Jim, so you can listen to those.
One other resource, or not resource, but thing, as you were talking about that, Deep Work specifically reminded me of this, is Jack Carr, the author of the James Reese thriller series, excuse me. He'll go off grid. Ernest Hemingway used to do this as well. Just go off grid and write. Distraction free. Go up to a cabin and just write. No kids, no wife, no distraction, no email, no technology. Just go out and write. And that goes to deep work.
Yeah. All right. Ryan Gent. I've been having some great conversations so far around the monthly topic in the Iron Council. A common theme seems to be coming up. Men lack the confidence to be assertive and decisive in their self-leadership and relationships. Meanwhile, being assertive and decisive is a path towards building confidence. How do you think so many men trap themselves with their own limiting beliefs and fail to navigate the left-right limits of their honest wants and needs such that they can start setting real boundaries and asserting themselves as they wish to?
There's so much to unpack here. I think there's a lot of reasons that people aren't assertive. One of them is they never learned how to be. Another one is they were taught not to be. Another one is that they're afraid of what might happen. Rejection, essentially. Because look, take it from this context. If you see a beautiful woman, maybe you work with a woman, or there's a woman down the hall or in another office space in your building, and you see her every day, and she doesn't have a ring on that finger, and you're like, man, this woman, like, she's incredible. I would love to ask her out. Well, why wouldn't you do that? You know you want to. You know you're attracted to her. Why wouldn't you do that? And I'm not saying that rhetorically. I'm asking you to think about that for a second. Why would you not do that? The only reason, there's only one reason. You're afraid. That's it. You're just afraid of being rejected. You're afraid of her saying no. And that's real. That's none of this like false evidence appearing real. Like, she actually could reject you, and that's going to sting. Yeah. Of course it is. It's going to feel like a personal indictment, and it kind of is. Maybe. Yeah. Unless she's in another relationship or something like that, but she's not interested in you, so that hurts. And that's why we're not assertive. If you're at work and you're in a meeting, let's say you're in a meeting with 10 other people, and the guy's bringing up this idea and he's asking for suggestions, and you have this idea. You're like, oh man, if we only did this, this could revolutionize what we're doing. This could turn around the company. This could be amazing. And you're like, I don't want to do that though. Why? Because you're afraid. You're afraid of what might happen. So the only thing that's keeping you from being assertive in life is your fear. You know you want to do something and you don't because you're afraid of it. So here's what I would suggest to you. You're never not going to be afraid in life. That beautiful woman, she's going to scare you. Always. There's nothing that you could do. There's no amount of confidence or bravado or hackery that you could engage in that will keep you from being afraid of asking her out. It's biologically hardwired into who you are. So just embrace it. Hey, you know what? I'm afraid of this. You know, one thing you could actually say with a woman is this. This would be a great way. This would be a great approach. You see this beautiful woman, you've been working next to her or down the office for 6 months, and you go to her and you're like, hey, Cindy, can I ask you a question? She's like, yeah, sure. I know this is coming out of left field, and it was actually really difficult for me to work up the courage to do this, but I would really like to take you to dinner. We've had great conversations, and I would really like to get to know you more, and I would like to take you to dinner. That was hard for me to do, but I would like to do that. At a minimum, she's going to be flattered if you're not a creep or a weirdo, right? But you just owned it. You're like, yeah, I was afraid to do it, but I did it anyways. And that's what assertiveness means. It's not assertive if you're not afraid. Fear has to exist in order for you to be assertive.
Yeah. So
just embrace it. For example, if you're in your conference room and you have this great idea for the company and you're afraid to bring it up, hey guys, I got a silly idea here, guys. I've been thinking about this a long time. I don't know if it'll work. I'm a little afraid to even bring it up because I don't want to sound dumb, but I think this might work. So I wanted to throw this out there and see what you guys think. That's assertive. Now I don't typically hedge that way anymore because I'm not too concerned with it. But if you have a hard time being assertive, hedging is a great way to help you get into the realm. I don't hedge like that anymore.
Yeah, contrast.
Like with Cindy, I would go to her and say, hey, Cindy, you know what? We've known each other for 6 months. And at this point, it's inevitable. You and I just have to go on a date. And I need to take you out to dinner this weekend. Yeah. Or in the conference, hey, guys, look, we've been batting this idea around for 6 months. We've tried a bunch of things. I have an idea we ought to do. But you might not be there yet. And that's okay. You will get there. The point I'm making is that assertiveness requires fear. That's a prerequisite to being assertive.
Yeah.
And it's simply a choice to act in spite of the fear that you're experiencing. So you have to make that choice on a daily basis. You're just choosing. I choose to do this today.
Yeah. We need to model having courage. It is a lack of courage.
It is.
In the grand scheme of things. And that's really all it comes down to. The only thing that while you're sharing, I was thinking, how often when you are being acted upon that it's disempowering. So there's actually a price of not asking Cindy out. Every single time you see her, what do? Oh, man, I wish I could ask her out. Like, you don't think that's eating at you already? You don't think that there's negative impacts of not doing anything? Oh, there certainly is. And it's highly disempowering. And so I would, maybe anyone listening that's like, oh man, is this me or not? Is there any area in your life where you are waiting and hoping? If you're waiting and hoping that something's going to happen, this is an area where you're not being assertive, you're lacking courage, and you're not taking action. And trust me, there's a level of disempowerment in that way of being. And there's empowerment on the other side, regardless of outcome, because you're taking action against it.
Kipp, that is really well said. There's one other thing I think we might be able to address here for people who are having a hard time being assertive. Realize that whatever happens, it's not the end of the world, and play it that way. So let's say you finally approach Cindy, and she's like, "Oh, Kipp, thank you. You know what? I've got a boyfriend. We've been dating for a year, but thank you." It's not the end of the world. There's plenty of Cindys. So here's what you say. Oh, you know what? Man, he's a lucky guy. Like, I'm glad for you too. No problem. I'll see you tomorrow. Like, don't make a fucking deal about it.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. If you go to the office and you're presenting your idea and they're like, I don't know, like that could be expensive or this, I don't know, probably not do that. Say, hey, no problem. I'm just spitballing. Just thought I'd throw it out there and maybe something came of it, maybe not. and then get your ass fully on board with whatever the direction is. Like, be cool. That's it. Just be cool.
Don't tie your identity to the outcome.
No.
Yeah.
No, there's going to be other women. There's going to be other business opportunities and ideas. There's going to be other things. Don't be a freak. Like, just relax. If it doesn't pan out, I promise you there's going to be something else that's probably better for you, actually. It's better. Whatever happens in the future is going to be better.
Yeah, totally. All right, last question, and I got to run after this one. So Paul, I actually don't know how to pronounce Paul's last name. Is it Karaman, the battle team leader for Phoenix?
Karaman, yeah.
All right, so Paul Karaman, since this month, the battle team mentors, the book of the month. I'm sorry, let me start over. Paul, since this month, book of the month is on masculine leadership. How is the long-awaited leadership development program created by Kipp, which gives the IC a common language and framework to catapult leadership skills and development to transform not only the IC, but the men's families, workplaces, and community, and the men's movement at large being rolled out and implemented in the IC as a whole? I guess that's what he's asking. Got it.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is we wanted to go through this as a leader. So so let me back up and give a little context. This is a leadership development program that Kipp, you wrote entirely. You wrote this course for our guys, and it is a prerequisite to leading inside of the Iron Council. So men go through the course and they learn the lessons. You do weekly calls, things like this. We've made it available to our team leaders. We've made it available to other leaders inside of teams that we have available. But ultimately, and I think by the end of the year, once we work out some of the kinks and we all start to agree, and as a leadership team, we meet on a weekly basis and we actually go through the leadership development program. Guys teach on specific subjects and elements of the leadership development program, and we're fleshing out ideas. Does this work? Does this make sense? Does anything else need to be added? Do we need to tweak or adjust or change this? And one thing that we've talked about, Kipp, is making sure that we're presenting it in different forms and different mediums. So video, worksheets, audio, obviously there's the text people can read. And I envision that happening by the end of the year, where we roll this out to everybody and we make it available for anybody who wants to go through this training. And not just this training, but other courses and programs that are available in the Iron Council. I'm actually putting together a course right now. I was thinking about it. We had a long time to sit with nothing over last week, right, Kipp? So
yeah, totally.
I didn't tell you this, I should have told you, but I created the outline for a course that I'm putting together, and I've got a really good outline and a good idea for this.
Awesome. This is what
specifically. What's that?
We talked about it a little bit.
On divorce? Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we did bring it up. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a great program. It's not to win your wife back. It's not to salvage the relation. That might happen as a result of the work we do, but that's not the point of it. The point is, how do you navigate a new divorce? First 12 months. Like, what do you do? What conversations? What do you do to fix yourself and your mindset? Hobbies, friends, dating again, that sort of stuff. It's going to be really powerful. So a lot of these courses are going to be rolled out between now and the end of the year, to go back to what Paul's question was.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So couple call to action. I think we really have one. And that
just
is within a couple days, the Iron Council is opening up. So if you've been on the fence, you want to join us, like-minded guys, be on a team that's going to hold you accountable. And ultimately, I love this analogy of getting out of the bleachers and watching the game and actually playing it. So if you're ready to get on the court and start playing the game, join us in the Iron Council. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council. That's going to be opened up on the 15th.
I think we're actually going to do the 14th, so Friday the 14th. Yeah.
Okay. So Friday the 14th to the end of the month. So you have a very short window, and then that will close until next quarter.
That's right. So you can check it out at orderofman.com/Iron Council. All right, guys, really good questions. I took some notes. I appreciate all the good questions. Hopefully, if you haven't listened already, go back and listen to Kipp and I's conversation regarding his very first archery hunt and you can find out whether he was successful or not. We'll leave a little cliffhanger
Little
there
tease.
for you, a little tease, and you can go check that out. That was yesterday's podcast that released, and then check out the Iron Council on Friday at orderman.com/Iron Council. Guys, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.